What's up, everyone? Thank you so much for checking out this video here on Show Style and Spirit. I am Ebony, of course. As you can see from the title of this video, I will be giving my commentary on Make It Make Sense, amazing interview with Allison Jordan. She is the sister of actress Drew Sidora, who is also a reality TV star on The Real Housewives of Atlanta. Miss Allison was everything. I definitely enjoyed this interview. I'm going to post the link to Make It Make Sense YouTube channel where you can watch the interview for yourself. This commentary won't even give it justice, so you definitely want to check it out. Now, before we get into all of the details, I ask that you please hit the like button on this video. It will cause YouTube to recommend this video to more people who have similar interests. You know, people who still love to watch The Real Housewives of Atlanta. If they are like me and they love those old seasons, they're not ready to turn their back on it yet. And for people who have been watching and they were triggered by the most recent speak on it between Candy and Courtney, and they want some questions that they got to get answered, they definitely need to watch Make It Make Sense's interview with Allison. Now, first, I want to congratulate and give Make It Make Sense his flowers. He's an amazing YouTuber. I find his energy to be so calming, and he is also very articulate and professional. So if I were a TV star, I would want to interview with him because I would feel at ease, even if he asked me questions that perhaps were embarrassing or not the best. You know, I wasn't in the best light at that moment. He would be the type of interviewer that I would want to talk with. So you did an amazing job, MIMS. If you ever check out this video, kudos to you. And of course, the Copyright Act of 1976 says that my fair use is allowed. And so I want to go ahead and dig right on in. Okay. So, in case you didn't know, Allison, Drew's sister, she has worked in the entertainment industry, which sounds like from the late 80s, early 90s, at least 30 years. She has managed her sister, Drew Sidora's acting career, and she has also worked with many other Black celebrities in Black Hollywood. In the beginning of this interview, it was for like a solid 40 minutes. Allison was dropping names left and right. The comedian Joe Torre. The thing was, as she would say a name, it made me, nostalgic. I was like a little girl in the 80s, and I was like a middle schooler and high schooler in the 90s. So as she said names, I was thinking of things like Joe Torre was in Poetic Justice, Wesley Snipes. We all know his career from the Spawn movies to one of my favorites, New Jack City. She mentioned Holly Robinson Pete. And that's Hanging with Mr. Cooper, 21 Jump Street. She is the 80s and 90s gal. So I'm like, she was that girl. And so that was very impressive, very cool to hear her stroll down memory lane with MIMS. And also, Allison and Drew are about 20 years apart. Now, if you've ever watched any of my previous videos, then you know that I am the baby. I have 5 other siblings, really 6, with one of my first cousins who grew up with us. And my siblings are 12 to 21 years older than me. And it is not very often at all that I encounter someone who first has parents who had them in their 40s like me, and then my siblings, a few of them are old enough to be my parents. And so when we first saw Allison on The Real Housewives of Atlanta, and I learned that was in Drew's confessional, I was like, oh my gosh. Now, what I will say is that Allison and Drew are much closer than I am to my siblings. Because like if my siblings were here, they would look in the camera and say to you all, yeah, like Ebony kind of grew up like an only child. Like they totally put me on an island. And so, and that's fine. I could be on the island. But with Allison and Drew, I definitely see where they did not let the age gap make them distant or come between them. So I think that's cool. And I don't think that's easy at all, because when I was growing up, my siblings were like going to college, getting married. And when I was in elementary school, my parents became grandparents. So, I mean, you're in two totally different worlds. But Drew and Allison, they like made a gel. And I don't think that Allison is controlling of Drew. I think she lets Drew blossom. And that's probably like the artist in Allison working in the entertainment industry. She can relate to Drew on that level, and that's why she's not controlling and stifling. But anyway, I think that's great. So Allison, of course, also has shared about her struggles with mental illness. As you know, we also saw on the Real Housewives of Atlanta where she did like a mental health retreat over at Drew's home, and the entire cast was a part of it. So I always feel like when people share that part of their life with the public, with the world, with strangers, that that's very generous of them. They do not have to do that. And so I just think that that is absolutely wonderful. And I do thank you for that, Allison. Even more during this interview with Make It Make Sense, Allison said how, there were a couple of times where she checked herself into institutions. I believe one time she did not do the checking in herself, and she spent about 19 days there, nearly 3 weeks. And then another time, she checked herself into the institution, and she spent like 25 days there, 3.5 weeks. So I think that that is very admirable. I remember reading the autobiography Gifted Hands. It was about Dr. Ben Carson. I know we kind of don't really F with Dr. Ben Carson no more, but he was like, the first Black doctor to separate Siamese twins. And he is from Detroit. And his mom, he wrote in his book about how his mom would check herself into mental institutions as well, when she felt like she needed the help. So I feel like that's very responsible, and that takes a lot of strength and just bravery to say, I need to be institutionalized. Let me go take care of some business. And that's what Allison has done. So kudos to you, Allison. So, y'all, oh my gosh, there were many receipts that was dropped during this interview. I would say the $1 million receipt is what y'all have all said. And that is that Miss Courtney and Ralph are not cousins. But we're just going to hear, Allison say it. And here we go.
This Courtney really quick, because I don't know how much time we have. But
no, we're on your time.
We're on your time. Is not his cousin. And I don't know when they cooked this up or how they cooked it up, but she is an unverifiable fake cousin Courtney. We're going to stop calling her cousin Courtney. She's unverifiable fake cousin Courtney. I met her when I got to Atlanta. Me and my mom, we went out with Drew, and she said she wants us to meet Ralph's cousin because that's what he told her. And so we like, hey, cousin, and we were at this club. She was, she was telling me she was already a housewife. She was telling people that was sitting next to them that was asking for pictures from Drew. Oh my God, you're Drew Sidora. They take pictures. Like, I'm not a housewife too. Who says that? So I'm like, oh my gosh, she's a housewife. So we were trying to introduce her to this dude. I don't want to say who that is, but he had no interest in her because he probably saw something, the glow. I don't know. And so we kicking it. We thinking she's cousin Courtney. And so after we leave there, that's all we know. And then I didn't see this broad again until I don't know, another event. I don't even know. I think the Peach Social or something. I don't know. I ain't never been around her that many times. And so all I know is we went down to UG, which is North Carolina, where Ralph grew up, where they claimed first, because the stories have changed, the evolution of the cousin tree, that they were cousins. So me and Drew, specifically me, went around to all the cousins. Hey, nice meeting you. Oh, so y'all know cousin Courtney? And I showed a picture. We don't know her. Who is she? Who are peoples? And they trying to go through the lineage and asking all these questions. Nobody, listen to me. He lives in this little bitty town where everybody walks with no shoes and they go from house to house. How don't nobody know you? Okay, and that's where you say you work. So that was the first thing, red flag.
Yes, so she has confirmed that Ralph and Courtney are not cousins. We all knew that. It was very strange. And really what solidified it for me was during last Sunday's Speak on It, when Courtney says to Candy, I've been more of a cousin to Ralph in the past 6 months than Drew has been as a wife to him. Now that is just not your average run-of-the-mill cousin statement, okay? Like, especially like my first cousins, some of them, they're like siblings to me. We text all the time and send each other pictures and reels and, so I just don't see that just seems like a for my man type of statement that you would say. Like, it just gives like mistress and you're trying to justify you being the side chick, that you're being, more of a cousin to Ralph than Drew has ever been as a wife. That's just what it's giving. And it's very weird. And Allison even went on to say that, at her health retreat, when they saw Courtney trying to come at Manetta, that's when they realized that something was kind of strange about Courtney, and they started, connecting all of the dots. So again, I love how Allison and Drew are on the same page. I think that that provides a lot of strength to each other. So, as far as Courtney speak on it last Sunday, when it came to the ill things that Courtney was saying, Allison said, Ralph is coaching her. She believes that Ralph is coaching Courtney what to say during interviews. Allison even said that Ralph tried to coach her when it came to filming in front of the cameras for Roa, to try and be antagonistic towards her sister Drew, to like argue with her. And, Allison, I guess, wouldn't fall for it. So good for her. Plus, us viewers, we're not idiots anyway. We can smell a fake storyline a mile away. We'd rather see the authentic life. And if your life is free of confrontation, then show that, but don't fake it. You know what I mean? Because as soon as us viewers can sense it, we feel insulted, we're annoyed, and it just, goes downhill from there. So Allison did comment on this whole did Drew kiss a woman or kiss Latoya, prior to filming the movie The Pass. And Allison said that, it wouldn't be a big deal if she kissed a woman prior. Drew would totally admit that. And she said that it just wouldn't be a big deal. So if Drew is saying she didn't kiss a woman, then that has to be the truth. So Allison didn't really say, as far as I know, my sister ain't kissed a woman. And why would your sister know if you engaged in any, freaky deaky behavior? Like, are you really sharing that with your sibling? I wouldn't want to know. Because what if they snitch? You know what I'm saying? So, So I totally get Allison not knowing for sure, but it was almost like, in her opinion, if Drew had kissed another woman previously, that wouldn't be a big deal for her to share, was her point. Now, I actually kind of disagree with that. Like I've said in previous videos, that I could see Drew possibly keeping that a secret because, number one, it sounds like they grew up in a traditional home. Their parents were married. Their dad was a pediatrician, rest in peace to their dad, and their mom is a preacher. Lots of major reasons to keep that under wraps and to not admit that. Because can y'all imagine the mothers of the church who watch The Real Housewives of Atlanta and are on Instagram going up to Drew's mama? Well, hey, Pastor so-and-so, I saw on Watch What Happens Live in the latest episode that Drew kissed Latoya forever. Like, I know some women at the church that I grew up in, they would have totally asked that, okay? At church, after service, in front of people. So if Drew is trying to keep it a secret, I do understand why. Like when you grow up in a traditional home, you're naturally raised to be a people pleaser. And you're naturally raised to kind of repress things that are the truth about you. I'm not saying that everyone will subscribe to it, but that is an experience for a lot of people. So if Drew is trying to keep it a secret, I totally get it. Now, as far as things like Ralph going off to Tampa, Florida, and not telling Drew why he was going there, if he was meeting anyone or traveling with anyone, who that was, things like that. Allison just said that, Drew was protecting her husband.
It's Courtney really quick because I don't know how much time we have. But
wrong soundbite. My bad.
Can't talk a lot. I don't want to say a lot about the marriage because, they're going through a divorce right now. But I can say this. My sister protects her husband, and that's what you're supposed to do, right? My parents have been married 61 years. My mom has said, we've been married for 60 something years, I think 61, 62, and that means we've been through some stuff. Well, she said the other word before she was pastor. We've been through some SHIT. So ain't nobody out here been through anything more than what my parents have been through. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and say the stuff that Ralph is on, but you keep, I come from a generation where you keep your stuff in your household and you try to work it through. You're in counseling, you're in prayer. My mom is in there staying at the house, praying with you. And when he went to Tampa, I was on the actual phone with Drew, and my mom was at the house. This is not for show. This wasn't anything that they planned. It really happened, and it really was hurtful. So she was like, I think he left. Where did he go? And and then he didn't come back. And so she has kept a lot of things close to her heart.
Yes, so Allison was saying, Drew, she's just been trying to protect Ralph, I guess protect his reputation and how people view him. And I can say that I have had girlfriends who have told me like their husband was really bad at money, but they never confide like in their siblings or their parents about their money issues because they didn't want their family not liking their husband. So like they felt safe confiding in me because they knew that I wouldn't repeat to their family what they were saying. But that I can testify and say that I know people who have definitely worked hard at protecting the husband. Now, I will say this. The couple of girlfriends that I know who protected husbands, they are their ex-husbands today. Okay, I know someone who the husband had a serious, drinking problem, had the like breathalyzer attached to the car where the car won't start unless he blows. And so, these were things that came out once it was evident that the marriage was over. But it wasn't anything that was, shared while they were dating. Because it would have been, an intervention like, I don't know if maybe you should marry this guy. So I do think that Allison is telling the truth when she said that Drew has just been trying to protect her husband. Now, whether or not I think it is the right thing to do, I don't believe that because I do feel like, there's always huge expectations placed on women to be perfect, to be a lady in public, a freak in the bedroom. Always, do it to him like every night and give oral and work hard on your job and help contribute to the monthly bills. I want a home cooked meal and clean the house and raise the babies. And if she's slacking, I just don't feel like there's any protection of her. And she could do all those things and still be unprotected, still get cheated on or be abused. So, I just don't believe in that you just pretending or trying to hide stuff that's happening because you feel like you're supposed to protect your husband. I don't agree with that at all. So now Allison also wanted to clarify about the notion that was made that Drew was using Allison's struggle with mental health for a storyline and the word exploitation was used. Now, Allison is going to also get into how, before we met Allison, season 15 of Roa, she was always around and she's going to tie it to the point that she's never been exploited.
Me to exploit me? Let me get this straight. I was on first season, boo-boos. I had filmed with Drew first season. I was actually on some of the FaceTime stuff with her. I was making phone calls, but I wasn't in a mental state at the time to really put my mental health story out. So they actually deleted me out of the first season. So I was there. She didn't have to exploit me. She was concerned about me. She was like, look, you're not, this ain't sounding right. This is not going to work for you. And so she was with me for 3 years in my mental health. She doesn't need to exploit me. I'm a grown woman. I am here to tell my own truth. And so
Okay, so she definitely wanted to make it known that Drew definitely has not exploited her. I don't think she is either. I think if the intent was to exploit her sister's struggle with mental illness, we would have seen her, as many times as we could in previous seasons. Drew would have probably begged producers not to edit out the sister. But instead, it sounds like Drew was sensitive to her sister's needs and goals and did not want her to be exploited. It's pretty obvious that Courtney, doesn't know these details. And Ralph kind of set her up. If it's true that he's allegedly coaching her on what to say, he kind of set her up to look ridiculous because Allison did this wonderful interview with Make It Make Sense, and she has debunked some major things that were, said. So also, Allison said that while Drew was on set of filming The Pass, which if you have a Peacock subscription, definitely check that out. She said that she discovered that Ralph had moved his belongings out of the shared master bedroom into a spare bedroom in the marital home. And Allison said she actually called Drew while Drew was on the set of filming The Past to let her know. And she said, then I felt bad because Drew was like, oh my gosh, and I still have to focus, and film these scenes for the movie. So then Allison, it registered like, I guess maybe I shouldn't have called her while she's filming, but that is at the same time, that is a part of life where we all have had challenges and you've had to focus and still do your work. Like when my mom was sick, I still had to go into work, and in the financial industry and in a sales role, you have sales goals. I still had to focus because, if you don't, and then you let your job fall by the wayside, then that could be additional problems to the original challenge that you had, So I guess at the same time, it was okay because it gave Drew some strength to really focus and take care of the business that she had to. But for those of you who watched the interview, let me know in the comments what you thought about this. I'm so glad that Allison was open to speaking with Make It Make Sense because her voice has been needed this week. And excellent questions, MIMS. Again, I feel like your calm energy helps people to open up. And I think that that is a superpower that you have. So you have that ability to ask questions that otherwise people who perhaps may have a more aggressive energy, it's going to be harder for them to ask without, putting the interviewee on the defense. So that's awesome. All right. Well, thank you all for watching my commentary on this interview. Please hit the like button on this interview. Oh, and I got my locks retwisted today. I was off from work today. I love it. I love a fresh retwist. Who this? Okay. So definitely subscribe to Show Style and Spirit if you have not already done so. And I will talk with y'all soon. Bye.